Welcome to SoCal Sports Report's weekly podcast. I am John Stellman, and we are shorthanded today. It's myself and Vince Morales, the dynamic duo, as we've placed John Adams on the 10-day disabled list. I think we use that more than the Dodgers. He's down with the flu, so we're gonna get through this without John, and hopefully we'll survive. We want to go over.
We need to play zone defense, John.
We are going to do what we normally do at the start of the show. We'll give you the lineup of what we're going to talk about. I'll give you an idea of where we're going, so you can prepare yourself for that. I don't think there's any doubt as to what the lead story is. That'll be the Rams. They are just truly unbelievable. I think that first half yesterday is about the. Well, we'll get Vince in on this too after we go through our lineup here. But they played terrific football against Seattle. Chargers had their chance. I mean, all they had to do was, show up at Kansas City, and they might have been still in the playoff hunt, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Vince wrote a great article. It's on the site. You want to look at it about the Dodgers and their salary dumps, what they've done as far as manipulating players, getting under the cap and preparing themselves for Bryce Harper in 2019. The Angels made some additions after Ohtani. Billy Epler went out and got Ian Kinsler, which I hated that guy when he was with Texas. He used to kill the Rams. We'll talk about that a little bit. I'm not too hot about the Kozart. Yeah. We'll talk about that. Last night they retired both of Kobe's numbers with the Lakers, number 24, number 8. Quite a ceremony at Staples. All the luminaries were there, and even some of the Hollywood elite that haven't been showing up put in an appearance for that night. So we'll talk about that. The Clippers win one, lose one. Ducks are still. The Kings are still going a couple of bumps, but they're still riding the top spot. The Ducks are trying to get healthy. I don't know if we'll talk about bowl games. There's really not much of my interest in bowl games until we get into the more significant games. The Troy States against New Mexico A&M don't particularly interest me. But we'll look at USC, UCLA. I don't know if they've, I think is today or tomorrow the signing day. And if we get a chance, we're going to talk about a little local high school football. Our modern-day Santa Ana Monarchs captured the state open division championship in Sacramento by annihilating De La Salle of Concord 52-21, and they finished the season number 1 in the nation in the USA Today national ranking. So that's pretty impressive. So let's get right after it. Talk about the open up with the Rams. I mean, I've seen a lot of football in my days, but that first half was just. I don't know. There aren't any words to describe. I mean, everything worked. I mean, the special teams especially was just awesome. That offensive line pushed the Hawks around. They had made openings wherever Gurley wanted to go. There was a hole, and Donald and the defense, they were just it was almost had to shed a tear for the poor defenseless Seahawks offensive lineman. I mean, they manhandled those guys. They really did.
It was dominant. It was absolutely dominant, and it was these precise sort of defining signature type of win that we've been looking for. They've been sort of building up to this, and we've seen that with some of the wins. They've been playing great on the road. They're one blip on the radar as far as would be the Minnesota game on the road.
Right.
But this was dominant to go up 2 games in the division. To kind of now they're got the roller skates on for the remainder of the season and should make the playoffs for the first time in more than about 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And again, I mean, a winning record for the first time in years, which they sealed up a while ago, but. Absolutely dominant offensively, dominant on the offensive line, again, dominant with the punt returns. Pharaoh Cooper was just magnificent. One of the kind of the unheralded players of the game for that. But especially when you've got Goff and Gurley who were doing their thing. Gurley, phenomenal. Closing in on what's he got? 1,800 yards from scrimmage. 17 total touchdowns. Ridiculous. I mean, we're talking Marshall Faulk, LaDainian Tomlinson type of stuff. Amazing.
He had a tremendous game. I think. Well, he leads the league in touchdowns. I think he's only a couple of yards behind the guy from Pittsburgh for total offensive yards, rushing and pass. The other guys had 76 more touches or something like that than Gurley. So he's averaging, more yards per touch. But yeah, he just pretty much did whatever he wanted to. And he broke tackles. I mean, he pushed guys aside. I mean, there was no stopping this guy.
3rd and 20 run.
Unbelievable.
He untouched. That 54-yard run on 3rd and 20. With time running out at the end of the first half, ridiculous. The Seahawks obviously were, undermanned.
They're banged up.
They were banged up.
Yeah.
But that is still a team that prides itself on showing up, and they didn't quit. They just got beat up. They got socked in the mouth, and they were reeling.
Well, those fans were booing him when they went off at halftime, and you don't ever hear that in Seattle.
They started to boo right after that Gurley big run, where again it looked like a man among boys. He ran in without anybody even. It was just great holes. The offensive line, which we've been talking about. Whitworth's the guy, but also on the left side, everybody there is just doing such a tremendous job, and it's making such a difference. And we're talking about all this, and yet I haven't even mentioned the Donald and Ogletree. Oh my God, they were fantastic. They were putting so much pressure. Russell Wilson was never comfortable back there in the pocket.
See that ball that he threw behind him out of bounds backwards?
What was he doing? And then the one one where he was pirouetted and spinning around and just left the ball on the ground.
Got to pick it up.
Yeah, maybe he was just giving it back, saying, "Look, take it. We're done. I don't trust these guys anymore." The offensive line was much maligned, but they had been playing better. But no running game, no passing game.
Yeah.
The Rams were absolutely terrific and sent a message out to the league that may have been writing them off. After that, losing them to Minnesota and stumbling against, stumbling last week. So
I still have to wonder what might have happened against Philly if Gurley had handled the ball more than 13 times.
Absolutely.
Touches,
No, he didn't. He didn't, and some of that you absolutely blame on the coach. But again, even then, they were still in the game late, and the Goff turnover. Goff has to take some of the responsibility there. But again, you dance with the girl you brought to the dance, right? So what they've been doing with Gurley is trying to manage the number of touches so that he is healthy. And so you get a game where he didn't have a lot of touches against Philadelphia, and then amazing. Yeah.
They and this wasn't a game where Goff just passed the Seahawks dizzy. He was very workmanlike. 11 of 21 or 10 of 21. He wasn't overpowering. I mean, it was just a good all around. It was a tremendous all around game, and it's great to see Robert Woods back. He
looked healthy, like he hadn't even been gone.
Yeah. And they picked up right where they left off.
Yeah,
they picked up right where they left off.
Yeah, and good play from the tight end. Good play at the other receivers. Great special teams. Again, Pharaoh Cooper giving them field position, and that game. It felt, you look at the score, and depending on where you came in, like if you came in early and you watched what happened, Rams were dominating, and it was like 2 field goals. This game is still manageable.
Exactly. One touchdown.
Seattle can be right in it, but then the big turnovers and just some fantastic defense was unbelievable.
The best field position the Seahawks got in the first half is when Hecker kicked the ball out of bounds on the kickoff.
Zerline. Yeah, Zerline kicked it out of bounds.
They got it on the 40-yard line.
Yeah.
It's the best field.
No, you're right. It's exactly right. And I remember thinking, oh, my God, he's been terrific all year. Right. He missed an extra point, too. Yeah. Sunday as well. So, but those things are just barely minor pimples in the scope of things. 7 sacks. Unbelievable. On the line, that 3-4 defense now has really just come into its own.
Right.
If you a year ago or even 2 years ago, you looked at that defense and the 4-3 and you thought, Donald and his buddies were dominating, and it was the only thing that even kept the Rams in games and made them even think that they could make a playoff last year or finish 8-8 or something along those lines. And this year with the 3-4, after, like we talked about it, after a few bumps, it is dialed in. It's disruptive. Donald was disruptive, but everybody else on the line has been amazing too. It's just crazy,
Yeah, what are you supposed to do? You can only block. You don't use 2 guys on Donald.
That's not enough. He was being double teamed and still getting through. Yeah, and loosens things up for Quinn and the rest of them. So,
I heard a guy. Coming in. I was listening to Sports Talk, and they were talking to the writer for the Register, Rich Hammond, and he was saying that the Rams have a pretty good shot in the playoffs because they're lucky in one regard that they've played probably the teams they're going to face in the playoffs. They've played Philadelphia, they've played Minnesota, they've played New Orleans, so they have an idea of there are going to be no surprises there, and they might be a little bit better prepared, and I think they can. I think they can do some damage.
And we've said it all along. I'm sure that there are going to be a lot of skeptics who say, "Well, this was a team that won 4 games last year, and some of this is maybe just sort of this." They're a little tipsy on the Kool-Aid that they've been drinking with McVay, and I understand that, but you look at it. It's a very balanced offense. The defense is terrific. The special teams are great. They're just outstanding, and those are the types of things that win you championships. And so, Goff is young. Yeah, of course, he could make some mistakes in the postseason, and when ball control is an issue, Gurley's going to be fresh for the postseason. He's absolutely going to be fresh for the postseason, and so, but just the jump in the offense. Jeff Fisher's offense last year he's scoring what were they scoring 16 points a game, right?
They had to win it defensively.
No, they were, and now they're averaging 30 plus points per game. It's the biggest jump in the modern NFL from one year to the next in points scored per game. Unbelievable. So watch out if they get everybody healthy and they stay sharp. Get home field advantage.
Right. If they should have at least for the first game.
At least for the first game. So, I was really surprised at how poorly the Seahawks played, but it was half and half. It was half bad Seahawks play, and half really terrific Rams football.
Yeah, they were talking last week during practice about how, in fact, I think McVay had some loudspeakers out at practice. They were going to have to go on the silent count because of the crowd in Seattle. They shut that crowd up pretty quickly. I don't think I don't remember them using silent count at all.
It looked like that he was doing some obviously some hand gestures and some helmet touching on a few things when they were backed up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And that crowd stayed. I was surprised. If I'm sitting there with my team down, 34-0. At that point it was more like it was 27-0 before the Gurley. They were still in it. They were still in it and cheering their team on. But you can take the steam out of them really quick when you dominate like that on defense. And Wilson didn't do himself any favors. I mean, that's the type of thing that he had to do with that offensive line. But those turnovers were big. Those turnovers again. The play when he left it on the ground and the Rams took over, and the time when he pirouetted and spun around and threw it out of bounds. And, they were at about midfield.
Yeah.
Before that huge loss on that play, and then the next thing you know, they're punting, and instead of it being 24-7, or they had put some points on the board before halftime, they give the ball back, and then Gurley pounds it in on that 3rd and 20
I think
run.
They only had 3 first downs or something like that in the first half.
Well, they didn't have very many first downs overall. They had 11.
The whole game.
11. The Rams had 19 first downs, but didn't need them because they were getting off big chunks and really just dominating.
Tennessee might be a bit of a battle. They've lost the last 2 games to the 49ers and Arizona, but they'll be playing for their playoff lives.
Yeah.
They're 8-6. They can't lose any more games. And they say it might be snow. Could be snow, at least rain, and low temperature. So it's not going to be a walk in the park, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think the gambler, the bettor would look at that and think that after a big game like this, and then going on the road, that the Rams might bounce a little bit, and I think that's what we might expect. Mm-hmm. But again, Gurley looks fresh.
Yeah,
Gurley looks fresh. That defensive line doesn't need much to get motivated. This is the kind of game that, again, we said it's a signature game. It sets the tone.
Right.
I would be disappointed with anything less than a major effort in Tennessee. You're at a point now where 10 wins.
You could go 12-4.
12-4.
Could go.
Flipping that record.
Exactly.
4-12 to 12-4.
I wonder if Jeff Fisher is enjoying this.
I think Jeff Fisher right now, he can't stay underground anymore. I think I just heard that he wants to coach somewhere, and if you're him, you got to show. You got to be out there and say, "Hey, yeah, I made some mistakes, but that wasn't all me."
Right.
But I don't think Jeff Fisher deserves another chance. maybe college, right?
Maybe South Dakota A&T or something.
Some directional school up in the northwest, Montana State Tech.
I think we've turned the page on the NFC West. I think the Seahawks, they had their run. They won one. Pete Carroll lost them one. I think we've turned the page. I think it's now the Rams are going to be the dominant force in the West.
It's interesting because all of a sudden, a team like the Cardinals, who were dangerous and who Vegas had right there, hanging, it's right behind the Seahawks for most wins. Carson Palmer all of a sudden turned 65 years old, and they just don't have it. So it looks like they're going to be the bottom dwellers for a while, with San Francisco's making the right moves.
Yeah,
the Garoppolo
like that trade.
acquisition, huge, a big time. Again, the Patriots, they say, look, we've got our guy. He's going to be around for a while. Who cares if he's getting
52.
old?
Yeah.
He, unlike Carson Palmer, he will be able to throw the ball when he's 65. But Garoppolo, it's something to worry about next year, right? Let's worry about that next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the Chargers, I was hoping for better than what I saw. They've always had hard times, difficult times in Kansas City. It's not the easiest place to play in, but all the talking heads had the Chargers edges, in every category, and looked like, in fact, I think they might have even been favored by 1.5 or 2 points. It's too bad because, they could have made the playoffs possibly if they'd won that game.
The Chiefs looked lost up to that point.
Exactly.
I was listening to some of the reporters that follow that team, and they had no idea what to make of them. They didn't know what team was going to show up at all. And though they did say, look, this is a team that started out pretty good offensively.
Right.
In the season, people were thinking we're going to have turned a corner, and then Alex Smith, they were talking about him as an early MVP.
Right.
they played well. The Chargers just couldn't seize the day. It's unfortunate because the Chiefs were vulnerable. The Chiefs were vulnerable and gettable. They were ready. Yeah. They were primed for the plucking, and it just didn't happen. And again, some of that is, Rivers is old. Their running game isn't perfect, and their defense at times looked beat up.
Yeah. Well, I'd still like to see him finish at 500. I don't know if they'll make that now. Let's get on with your article that's on the website, the Dodgers and their salary dump to position themselves for 2019, maybe a run at Bryce Harper and re-signing Clayton Kershaw?
Yeah, Kershaw can opt out of his deal next year. It's a huge deal, but he may even be in line for more money.
How much money does he leave on the table if he opts out?
Well, he will have. I think it's at the end of this one, it would be 3 additional at like 30 something million per year. So it's a huge deal, close to $100 million that he would leave. But in this climate and with what people will be able to pay, it's not. It's not the most unlikely thing. I mean, Clayton Kershaw, who bleeds Dodger blue, who has given his heart and soul. You never know. At this part of his career, may want to head back to say closer to his Texas roots.
Because he's he's only 29?
No, he's 30.
Is he 30?
Yeah, he's 30.
So this is going to probably be his last big contract.
I think that his last big one for sure. So I think it would behoove him to opt out. He's likely going to get more money, but you just never know. But it looks like the Dodgers, said, look, we won 104 games, won a bunch, won 9 games in the postseason. One short of where we wanted to be, right. But this team is capable of doing that again. And they didn't give away anybody who was really integral in accomplishing that. No. And now they're looking even further ahead. So it's almost as if it's like, well, we're here right now, 2018, tweak here, tweak there. We're under the salary, luxury cap. Yeah. We have some flexibility now that we've jettisoned these huge contracts, the $20+ million for Adrian Gonzalez, the $17 million for Scott Kazmir, and the $11 million for Brandon McCarthy, and then Culberson was going to arbitration. So he will likely be signed, and at least 2 of those guys will play a big role for the Atlanta Braves, but weren't going to be much of anything for the Dodgers. No. The Dodgers could afford to get rid of them and couldn't afford the contracts that were there. So, Alex Anthopoulos, the GM for the Braves, is a good friend, friend of the Dodgers.
We know where he came from.
Exactly. He knows from whence he came. So he helped us out quite a bit. And Kemp, even if Kemp stays on the books, stays in the lineup. It's a big right-handed bat. It's something that the Dodgers could use. Mm-hmm. Chemistry-wise, not the guy I'd want out there with the young team. I remember when Jeff Kent was with this team, and he was kind of a chap ass, and he didn't like Matt Kemp. And then Matt Kemp was sort of looking at Jeff Kent and saying, come on, man. I'm the future of this franchise. And then we give him a huge contract. Kent, retires, moves on his way. And then Kemp started busting Puig's chops. So then it was all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute. Don't you remember when Jeff Kent was busting your chops? And now here's Yasiel Puig. He's a young guy. Don't you remember? And it was shortly after that Kemp was, traded and the Padres. But I don't think Kemp's the right guy, but if we do have to keep him and we can't get rid of him and we don't designate him for assignment, he's a big right-handed bat that might be able to platoon out there with Verdugo or Jock Peterson or Tolles, if Andrew Tolles is able to come back. And, so we got a lot of lefties, not a lot of righties. Kike Hernandez is probably not the guy who they want to platoon. But if we have to platoon him out there, then fine. I don't know if the Dodgers are going to get anything for Matt Kemp.
Yeah, I wouldn't. And they would probably. And
nobody's going to take any of that contract. So the Dodgers aren't going to get much relief cap wise, but they've gotten to a point where at about $187 million, they have some flexibility to eat that if they decide to designate him for assignment, to go out and get him a low budget reliever and just fill in the blanks.
So you don't look at the Dodgers making any big.
I don't see when we were talking, when you were emailing me about McCutchen, Kane. I don't think that's going to happen. They're not going to add more money to their cap book. They just they don't. What happens by staying off of that cap list, everything resets next year.
Right.
So it goes back to zero.
Exactly.
Or or the 20% when they start to go over the cap, which I think they intend to do at the end of next season by trying, if Kershaw opts out of his contract, re-signing Kershaw, and then, like we talked about, going after that one big guy, because there's some big guys out there. Bryce Harper is the crown jewel in that, but Donaldson will be a free agent. Josh Allenson will be a free agent. Manny Machado will be a free agent. There are a lot of
it's
guys. Andrew Miller, will be a free agent. Not that that's the sort of thing that I think the Dodgers would be looking for, but there's more flexibility, and for them to kind of sort of clear the slate for next year as far as the luxury cap is concerned, and then start adding the money on and say we're back, but at least we're not paying that penalty up at the 50% and above. They're ready to go. What
type of a contract do you think Kershaw is going to demand as far as money and years?
Wow. For me, I think it's probably a 6-year contract.
You said that back problems too.
Yeah. Again, I don't know that he'll get it, but I think that's what he'll likely ask for. 5 for sure, maybe even as big as 6. And it's going to be a huge number. We're going to see.
Yeah.
Because everybody will be, if he can stay healthy, if he can get these things right, and he can stay healthy or healthy enough to do what he's been doing over the last couple of years, somebody is going to pay him that money, and hopefully it's the Dodgers.
Right. Yeah, that would be a big hole in their rotation. The Angels, after Ohtani, Billy Epler signs Kinsler, which I like. He's a veteran guy, a good clubhouse guy, and
Solid acquisition.
Had a bad year last year, but he played on a 98-loss team. So,
if he can stay healthy and play games, he's a solid defender. He'll hit 10 to 15 home runs for you. I know you weren't real big on the Cozart signing, but defensively, he's terrific. I mean, defensively,
Moustakas is not good.
Yeah,
Moustakas is not good defensively.
No, and Cozart had a career year.
Yes, he did.
But at an age of 30, 31, 32, whatever he is, a little older. So what are you going to get from Cozart? Well, you're still going to get the defense, and if you get even the guy that he was 2 years ago, I think that's a good acquisition. It's not the big guns, but that lineup looks set to me. Now it's just a matter of getting the pitching pieces in order.
Down the middle, I mean, with Maldonado, Kinsler, Simmons, and Trout, there's
absolutely. It's the best up the middle.
Yeah.
And now you can with a defense like that, it's like, wow, who's going to back up Pujols because they want to play Pujols X amount of games at first base.
Right.
That's still a situation that needs to be shored up, because if you don't have a guy, if everybody's picking it, but the guy's not able to dig it out, at first base.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be a problem. The only thing first and third are supposed to be your power spots. And that's the only thing. That's the only reason why I like Moustakas is he had, he had 38 home runs, 85 RBIs, 521 slugging, hit 272, and he's not the defense that Cozart is. I grant you that, but then he's got the offensive pop, and I think one thing the Angels need is a left power hitting left-handed batter. The only left-handies they got is what Calhoun is left-handed. And Valbuena, who can't hit 200. They keep talking about using him at first and third. I'd like to see him. Selling used cars.
I'd have to look at the splits. I'm guessing that if you can get a platoon and get the right splits, maybe Valbuena will have some value.
He hit some home runs, but
and look, Cozart might continue. I mean, if we continue that Cincinnati, the Angel Stadium is not the same as Cincinnati. So I think we can immediately lop off about 10% of those home runs. And, Cozart is probably, like Kinsler at his best, probably a 15 home run guy.
Yeah.
And I think if you can get 30 home runs out of your second and third baseman,
I think he could do that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That could be the thing that the lineup is starting to look like less of a coin flip.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you're an Angel fan, you got to look at that lineup and start thinking, we're setting the outfield.
Yep.
And now it looks like that the lineup is set. I think first base is still where there's the question: is Pujols going to be able to play more than 30 games?
Yeah.
There.
Kinsler said that Upton had a lot to do with his signing with the Angels. They were teammates in Detroit last year, good friends, and Upton had nothing but great praise for the Angels. And Kinsler said that's what that was a turning point really when because he values his opinion and they're good friends. And when he spoke as highly as he did, plus they gave him extended that contract another year. So I'm kind of optimistic. You've still got Houston in the division, but. There's always that World Series hangover, and they didn't really have, Correa was out, and Dallas Keuchel was out for a little bit, but they didn't have any. They had nobody out 6 weeks like Trout was last year. They didn't have any real major.
No.
I mean, if Altuve were to go down for a couple of months, or one of those other guys, I mean. I don't see.
Yeah, and who would have predicted that Bregman would have been what he was?
Exactly.
Again, those are the types of things that, like with the Dodgers, with Chris Taylor, it couldn't have been predicted, but it was the thing that sets that team apart from the other teams in the division. But you never know. The Angels are headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
They're headed in the right direction. It's the pitching now that
they
needs healthy arms. I hope, Billy Epler has sent ice machines to all of his pitching staff. Keep your arm loose and iced and healthy.
Well, I think it's health, but if they stay healthy, I think that they have the pitchers to go with a six-man rotation. They've got 7 other starters besides, Tani.
Right.
But then again, it's got to be healthy. But I don't know how that could happen. They didn't have the whole starting 5 together all at the same time once last year.
Right.
There was always one guy, 2 guys that were. Yeah. So, you got to hope for better.
Right. And I think the only thing that is worrisome is that there's still no farm system. You can't look over at first base and say, well, maybe we can bring a kid up like a Cody Bellinger who might be able to give us some good at bats in a lot of games over at first base.
That's true. It's
that's the problem, and at some point that needs to be addressed. They're building, they're getting better, but the cupboard's bare.
It is. Yeah, it's and a lot of that, they signed a couple of shortstops from the Atlanta International.
Right, that fiasco, right?
Were thrown back into the pile, but that's still 2 or 3 years away. I mean, plus you don't really need a shortstop. But we'll see. I'd like to see the Dodgers and Angels both have a good season coming up. Dodgers Dodgers will have a good season, and if the Angels can stay healthy, they can probably at least be in the mix. Did you see any of the Kobe celebration last night?
I did. I don't know how I feel about the two jerseys. I guess you can't just hoist an 8 or a 24, and you can't just hoist one jersey with a slash.
Right.
That would be silly. So you gotta retire them both and send them both up into the rafters. And so, but that's pretty typical Kobe, right? I mean, that sort of is Kobe's career in a nutshell, right?
Right. Yeah. Two
jerseys, exactly. Two jerseys for Kobe. A little extra money when you didn't really need to. Look, I love Kobe. Kobe was terrific, and we were talking about this a little bit off the air. The feud with Shaq that sent Shaq away and put some gaps between those first championships and then the last two championships. That was, for me, it could have been just great for years and years and years. And then obviously Kobe torpedoing that, where the Lakers are now is a direct reflection of the contract that Jeannie Buss gave Kobe. And at a time when Kobe's kind of one of those guys where it's like, it reminds me of the quote, if you're leading and no one's following, you're just a lonely guy on a long walk. And he was the guy who came out and said, you know what, the union has to stay firm, and that I've earned that money, and everybody needs to, nobody needs to give any, people shouldn't give money back. And guys like, Duncan would look at him and say, or Nowitzki would go, that's not, screw the union. I want to win. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm going to give money back.
Both those guys did. Both of
those guys did. And
Duncan did.
And people did all over. That's what you do to win a championship. And Kobe was saying, no, you never give anything back. I'm a businessman. You never give anything back. And he didn't give anything back. And then there was also the part where Jeannie Buss, again, it made sense because they had the big contract, the big Time Warner contract. And they had a lot of money, and they figured this was going to be a wash for them as far as merchandise and keeping him along. But you've seen the devastating effects that it had, and we've seen some really bad years because of the money that was tied up. And you could have taken half that money and had the other half on the back end. They would have had $12 million to go out and sign 2 or 3 players. I think Duncan played for $10 million last year. Absolutely.
Absolutely,
but Kobe was banging that drum, and when he was banging that drum in the media, it was like, oh, I guess you've had this conversation with guys in the union, your fellow NBAers around the league, and it didn't feel like that. Other guys around the association were like, that's not my deal.
That's right.
I'm going to give it back. I want to win. I'm going to give back some money so we can win. Yeah. And I guess that right now in this day and age with these, with Duncan and Kobe, that's what you look at. Kobe was the flashy guy, Duncan the not flashy guy. Kobe was the guy who siphoned money off. The Spurs are still around. They're hanging around because of the sacrifices that Duncan made financially and contractually. Right. And the Lakers are not. They're not hanging around. They've had to work harder and get lucky with some lotteries and keeping some picks in order to be at a point where they're able to lose in overtime to the Golden State Warriors. Yeah. That's a team that at times looks like it's on the verge, and then other times it feels like, I don't know who's going to take our last shot. Yeah. I don't know who's going to come up big at the free throw line. I don't know why anybody would defend Lonzo Ball beyond 18 feet. Yeah. There are times when he comes down, and especially against Golden State, it was plainly obvious that he's still too slight to really just pound it in, right? Finish at the hole. Yeah. So they weren't too worried about that. And whenever he looked like he was going to penetrate from the perimeter, they just stood around and said, You're not going to shoot that. Yeah. We know you're not going to shoot that.
Exactly.
You're shooting 30%, lower than 30% from beyond the arc. Why would I defend you there?
Exactly. Yeah.
But the good news is that guys like Josh Hart are emerging. I didn't think Josh Hart would, but he's an older guy. He was a champion at Villanova.
He played 4 years in college. Didn't he?
He played all those years and developed. I think this is he's. I don't know that there's a much more ceiling there left for him, but he's playing well. But Kuzma, again, sometimes a little Kobe in Kuzma. Sometimes, and I know Lucas said, Kuz, pass the ball. And there are times when he looks great and he passes the ball and he rebounds and he's a hustle guy. And then there are other times when it's, wait a minute, did they call an ISO for Kuzma?
Exactly.
And Kuzma took the ISO, but they didn't call it for him because that's what Luke is saying. We need him to, play within the offense. And once he settles down and plays more in the offense, they're going to be good. But there's a lot of ifs. I mean, a lot of those tumblers have to fall into place for the Lakers to be good at some point down the line.
Yeah.
They can play against a Steph Curry-less Warriors team and take them to overtime, but even then. An air ball, by KCP at the end of regulation, which could have won it. Just bad. It's like who's gonna? Is it KCP?
Yeah.
Do we want KCP taking it? Do we want Brandon Ingram taking it? Are we gonna try and pound it down to Julius Randle, or is it is it gonna be Kuzma? Or is it gonna be Lonzo Ball? Who, if he does take it, his shooting percentages are so bad that even if he takes it and they can defend him tighter because they can foul him, and he's not going to make those foul shots. I mean, he's shooting 50%.
50% from the foul line.
It's terrible. I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There are times when I think they're good, and then and then you've got Brook Lopez now out for 3 weeks. With the ankle injury. I'm not sure what it was, but I saw that he's going to be out 3 weeks.
That's why they brought in, what's his name? Yeah. Bogut, who's no longer.
And Bogut, who's been playing, 7 minutes and who's been a coach's decision DNP for 10 of their first, 30 games or so. And then KCP, who's not allowed to travel out of the state for the next 25 days.
That's great.
Yeah, because of that brush with the law that he had when he was with Detroit. So he'll play, but unfortunately, he's only going to miss a couple of games. But I still don't know. I think Luke is a good coach, but he needs to get more out of him. Sometimes I don't. I watch him and I have no idea what kind of offense they're playing, what kind of defense they're playing, what they're doing. Like
I think John said, it looked like a playground pickup game at a playground sometimes.
They were in that game and then they missed. I don't know, 6 out of their last 7 shots or 7 of their last 8 shots. I mean, you're not going to beat the Warriors, even a shorthanded Warriors team who had been. I mean, Thompson was terrible. Durant wasn't shooting very well. That team was ripe. And we still couldn't get it at home. Couldn't get it. And then I think again the epitome of Kobe, leaving before the game was over, leaving at the end of regulation. Didn't even stay for overtime. Walked off the court with his family.
The thing that really upset me about him chasing Shaq out of town was, the Lakers are 1 world championship behind the Celtics. I think it's 17-16. Those guys, if Shaq sticks around for another, they might have won another 2-3 championships, and they might be 18-16.
No question.
That's the thing that really upsets me. I think we were talking before too. Kobe is I read that Kobe is the first player in major professional sports to have 2 different numbers raised by the same team.
Right.
A lot of players have gone to other teams and had a different number raised, and I think that's Kobe.
No, that's Kobe.
That's Kobe.
2 numbers up, and on his night, leaving before the game was officially over.
Yeah, probably didn't want to deal with the media.
I guess.
You have any thoughts on the Clippers? I really haven't been too much in tune with the Clippers.
No, I think we need to wait until Griffin comes back and they're 100% healthy. Nobody knows what kind of team that they're going to be. I think they're going to be fine, but They need to get Griffin back. They need to get their other players healthy. This could have been a high season for them, but then early injuries. The Gallinari and Teodosic.
You just don't want them to fall too far behind.
Yeah, no, I think they're hanging around.
Yeah.
I think just like you were talking about with the Ducks, they're hanging around. They're going to get healthy, and what happens after that that's the big deal, right? That's what will remain to be seen. But again, the Lakers are a work in progress. The Clippers are still they need to figure out things once everybody's back and healthy.
Yeah. It's hard to move forward without your.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, Beverly out for the year with the ACL.
That really hurt.
It's killer. But Sweet Lou Williams has looked terrific for them. Laker fans know how prolific a scorer Williams can be. He's looked terrific. Austin Rivers, he's not my cup of tea, but he gets it done. He's solid. He's a performer. He can score. He can finish the rim, unlike Lonzo. There are times when Lonzo's brilliant. Don't get me wrong. He looks brilliant, but he needs to shore up a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he has a few areas that need serious
improvement.
Serious improvement. Yeah. Your Kings are still at the top of the top.
Hey, they got 3 points on a 4-game roadie against the Metropolitan Division. I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take it. We're right around that, just under the halfway mark, and Quick has been the difference. Getting a lot of good play, more. Toffoli has as many goals this year as he did last season.
Yeah,
that's already an improvement. Kopitar again, 17 goals. Dustin Brown right up there at the top.
We never saw Kopitar last year. He disappeared.
Completely disappeared.
Yeah.
He's a brand new man, and
I love Stevens.
Team's
I really
playing.
love Stevens.
And the statistic that I think is really, really telling is that team is plus 23 in the third period.
That's terrific.
Terrific.
Yeah.
And the next best team, the Lightning, and they're at plus 13. Nobody's even close to the Kings.
Wow.
So they turn it on. They know what's happening. They've got veterans, and they've got some good depth, and Stevens is doing a good job behind the bench. So no complaints. They're doing great. That road trip, you kind of hoped it could have been a little better, that maybe they could have escaped with a win. But the fact that, up early in that one
That's
game
tough.
and, against the, I think it was the Rangers, and then coming back and, coming back and getting the tie after and then losing in overtime. At least they got the point.
Yeah.
And then they got 2 big points against the team that would, the Flyers, who had won 6 straight. So.
Yeah, I can't complain about that.
No, can't complain about that at all.
Plus, it's always tough going cross country anyway, and time change and weather and all that stuff.
And again, 2 more goals for the Kings in the third period, and shut the Flyers out in the third. So
if you can stay even or one back going into the third, you got a pretty good chance to win.
Yep. So they're at the top with the surprising Vegas Golden Knights, but I like the Kings' chances with Jonathan Quick. In the pipes.
Well, they're not even that. There's not that much of a drop off when Quick's not in there.
No, Kemper's been terrific.
He's been good.
Yeah, absolutely. Solid. His goals against average, we talked about this the last week. It's among the leaders, and maybe might even be leading. In the NHL.
There's no real drop off there.
No drop off, but.
It's still
Quick is more dynamic. He's just so much more dynamic. He changes the game. But Kemper had an assist the other night.
Open netter?
No, he had it was on a play where I can't remember if it was the Islanders or the Rangers that were they were forechecking in the zone, and it just came out, and he had a good outlet pass, and then to, I think it was Pearson, and then they a nice pass across, and they scored. So, you gotta love that. Gotta love it when your goalies are starting to break.
Yeah. We say it every week. Ducks hanging around. They may get Kessler back after the first of the year, but I haven't heard a word about Patrick Eaves. Not one word. And
makes a big difference. Changes that team.
Yeah, he's a big offensive threat, and he hangs around in front of the net.
Yeah.
Creates problems there for the other teams. There's too many guys that they need that they don't have right now. Do you have any interest in these bowl games yet?
Well, just for gambling purposes, I had one of my the big games that I got down on. In fact, I'm in a contest with some buddies, but you needed to get your picks in 12 hours before the game, and I had forgotten about the game, which was Oregon and Boise State. I love Boise State, and they were getting 5.5, 6 points. So I loved that game. Yeah. But anyway, I was able to win a little money off of them, but I didn't get them in the pick for my contest. So, but this is the same contest that I started. I think I started 6-0 last season, and then ended up just going in the tank. Yeah, but it's a fun contest where 16-4 you pick 20 games of the bowls, 20 of the bowl games. You get 20 picks. And so it's essentially winner take all.
So does everybody pick the same
spread.
20 games?
No, you pick however any of the. So I don't know how many bowl games there are. 30, 35, something like that. And but you're mandated to pick 20 and then have your picks in. 12 hours before your first game kicks off.
So, did you pick anybody? Have you picked anybody besides Boise State?
Well, that was one of the games. I like. I like the Bruins. I think
is this just straight up or with the points?
It's points spreads. And the Bruins are getting a couple points against
Kansas
State. So, for this weekend, I'd have to check my list, but there's nothing that I love. It's all next week. It's after the holidays, when the big games start to kick off, and I love the Trojans. The opening line there was 6. Trojans getting 6.5 against Ohio State, and everybody's saying, that the Trojans defense doesn't match up well with Ohio State's offense. There are times when the Trojans defense has not played up to where they should be, and sometimes play down to the competition. But they play up. A good team like Ohio State.
They'll get up for them.
Absolutely. I think that they've been at times brilliant.
And that quarterback for Ohio State has not been real consistent. I mean, he's good.
He's been good lately. Yeah. He's been good lately. Yeah. But again, some time off. Really interesting to see what Darnold does. Whether it feels like he's gone. I've read some things, and I've read some people who follow him. Reporters and bloggers that follow him, and it looks like he's gone.
He's gone?
Yeah. I think that's the consensus, is that he's gone. He's just going to be – the evaluations come out, and so after the bowl game is when Clay Helton will sit down with any of the kids like Ronald Jones Jr. and Sam Darnold. I think he's already said he's and it looks like Ronald is likely gone. Yeah. I think he feels like he's ready to go. Love to see him, but waiting in the wings is Stephen Carr for the Trojans, so not a huge drop off, and I think that in bowl games like this is when so last year against Penn State in the Rose Bowl, they spotlighted Deontay Burnett, who at the beginning of the season looked like he was going to be the heir apparent at the wide receivers. Now it looks like they're going to start spotlighting guys like Michael Pittman Jr.
Right.
And Stephen Carr, and I think that'll be great, to see what's next for the Trojans.
Carr's only a freshman, isn't he?
Yeah.
Now they're talking about the quarterback at Modern Day graduating early and showing up for spring ball in January.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's he might. I mean, if he doesn't do it this year, I mean, I don't know if he's got his credits or what, if he's able to graduate, because he's a junior. But just like Sam Darnold and Sears and Jack Sears did at San Clemente, they play their senior year, graduate early, and then show up for spring camp when they should be their spring semester in high school. So I don't know if Daniels is coming out for good, but it's a great segue to Modern Day. What an outstanding year they've had. Brother. That's one of the best. That offensive line is probably the best high school offensive line that I have ever seen.
Yeah,
their big kid is going to Alabama.
Pretty awesome. Yeah, they're going to some pretty good schools.
And one of their other kids is already committed to Boise State. And I imagine that every one of them is that plays on that front line for the Monarchs is going to go somewhere. Could play D1.
I think Bruce Rollinson. I think he should retire. What a way to go out. The guy's 68 years old, which is young, but still, I mean, undefeated. State champions, number 1 in the nation. You can't get any better than that.
Yeah, and De La Salle, another great program nationally, and they just manhandled them.
And they haven't. That's the first time they've beaten them. They were 0-4 against De La Salle.
Right.
And they've.
It would be a great way to go out, but I mean, if the guy, why not stick around?
Well, if he's having fun, enjoys it.
Yeah, exactly.
We got anything else? We're early. That's what happens when big here.
Yeah.
A couple of minutes early. I can't. Anything else you want to?
No, I think we will be able to. We'll have another session with the podcast before the bowls, so that'll be good. The big bowls, anyways. At any rate, we'll be able to talk about how UCLA did, and it's like we said, it's an audition for the guys that fit into Chip Kelly's system and who doesn't. I'm still, I haven't heard anything. I would suspect that Josh Rosen will play, but the Ducks had a guy sit out.
They did.
Their running back sat out against Boise State. That was a thing last year.
McCaffrey?
Yeah. Christian McCaffrey sat out last year, so it's not unheard of.
Now, what about USC? Are all their guys going to play?
Everybody's going to play.
Okay.
Everybody's going to play.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, everybody's going to play. And they are going to need all hands on deck against Ohio State. But going to be great to see USC back at the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Keyshawn really lit it up last time he was there. He was great.
Yeah, that's going to be a good game. And I see where, speaking of the Pac-10, Washington State just extended their coach for...
Yeah, they extended Leach.
5 years.
But again, those contracts are...
made to be broken.
Yeah, that's... Nobody ever fulfills their contract length. They either get fired or they decide to move on or part ways. And so I'd like to see what the details are on that and what the buyout money is. That's always the big thing. It's at some point, Leach is going to wear out his welcome, and that's how I feel. I mean, that's just the way Leach has been and where he winds up. Anybody who thinks that he's going to live out the life of that contract with Washington State and Pullman,
not going to happen.
No, they're nuts.
Speaking of the Pac-10, where basketball? Where did Arizona State come from?
Yeah,
they are now number 3 in the nation. I don't. And Arizona was up there.
Well, their guard,
and they've struggled. But.
Yeah, Trey Holder, unbelievable. Scoring, driving, distributing. Bobby Hurley has done an amazing job. That team had won some big games last year, and they were, sniffing around. They were good, and they're a good team. They've been doing well, in non-conference, and that's the kind of thing that helps you get into the tournament. But we've seen the Pac-12 conference. You eat your own at that point. So hopefully the Trojans can get DeAnthony Melton cleared and off the NCAA eligible list and get him back. But the Trojans have looked good in their last 2 games against lesser opponents, obviously.
Right.
But Chemezi Metu with 31 against UC Santa Barbara, and then Jordan McLaughlin, the senior, with 19 assists. Against a very game UC Santa Barbara team, but even though they only won by 11, it was never even that close. I mean, UC Santa Barbara can shoot. They can shoot threes, and they have a couple of good players, and that Heidegger kid can really pour it in. But the Trojans looked great. They've gone to a bigger starting lineup. Rakocevic and Metu And
Right.
Boat right now out. It will be out probably a couple of games. We'll see. He was out early in the season, and Thornton, the Duke transfer, out. So,
aren't those two other freshmen at UCLA playing now?
I don't know for sure if they are or not.
I heard that they were back in the good graces, I guess.
I don't know that they are. To me, that would be a disappointment. I don't know that they are for sure. That seems like barely even a slap on the wrist with a wet noodle.
Yeah. Well, in all due respects to John, we will not talk about Bozo.
No.
Okay, I think that'll be a wrap. Unless you have anything else?
No, I think we've covered it all.
We'll have a lot to say about the bowl games next week. Maybe previewing the big ones that are coming up and looking at some of the results of the lesser games.
We'll probably have some more. We'll have more information about players that are committing to the local colleges, Pac-12, and we may see more in the Hot Stove League, and see if other things develop with some of the big free agents and guys.
It's been pretty quiet. It's been pretty quiet.
A little quiet, but there's nobody wants to panic, right?
Yeah, exactly. Our next podcast will be after Christmas, so let's wish everybody
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, a happy holiday, and happy Hanukkah, and whatever your celebration may be. So until next time, we are out.
Good night.